Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well and keeping as safe as they possibly can. And let's give it a try. This one's from Dave Wimble here in Ottawa. And interestingly enough, very similar to a question by Jennifer Butler, and a little bit similar to one of the questions of Marine Flora in Columbus. Sorry about that. I should say Ohio, Maureen, because you're not quite in Columbus. Sorry about that. Dave says he's having trouble with intensity around what the personality thinks it needs in order to survive. Many of these needs generate physical or emotional pain. When I try to soften one of these, it seems like it's beyond my reach. Is there a way to calm down the unhealthy needs that power our personality? Well, I'm just going to see. There you go. It's a bit of a dilemma thinking the way we do as a personality. Somehow, we tend to consider personality as a vehicle that should be perfect. And it's not. But we render it perfect in terms of construction. Quite naturally, as you've heard me say before, we begin to develop a personality at a very young age. And thank goodness for that. And we keep adding information and responses and reactions and the way we think things should be or shouldn't be, because we're rule-oriented often in terms of how our family brings us up and how we make up our minds things should be. And things aren't like that. As a human being, we have a potpourri of interactions, 8 billion people. My goodness, we don't act exactly the same way. But there are many different kinds of ways of acting. However, when you begin to be involved with what you might call internal or spiritual development, looking to be involved with higher states, it immediately brings up one great fundamental thing that we all have in common from time to time. And that is, we seem to think we know what higher states are like and what they would appreciate and how things should be. And some of that is just good common sense. Some kindness to others, engaging with others in a respectful manner, and trying to engage and understand ourselves to some degree. And intermixed with all of that is trying to make a place for ourselves, a position and place and all the rest of it. And trying to see if we can be elevated in the eyes of others, or if you have a different kind of perspective, maybe put down a bit in the eyes of others. You don't want to be really able in their sight because they get naturally frustrated, jealous, all kinds of things. These are kind of natural tendencies. It's weird, but it's natural. It's normal. So you hit a point in your life someplace along the line where you'd like to be involved with higher states, let's say. So you start thinking what they must think that you're like so that you'll be accepted by them. And we have enough rudimentary rulings around these things in our childhood and in our lives, because we judge other people relative to what we think things should really be like. Yet we don't have a clue what another person is really dealing with internally. But we suspect, we anticipate, we believe, and all of those things are basically rudimentary. They are not real. Some pieces may be as real as they can get. Some pieces not that way at all. So in Dave's question is a fundamental question which affects us all based on what we think things should be like. When you engage physically and emotionally in life, we seldom think about the idea of what is the capability of my physical body in terms of engaging with life. Well, we pick and choose things that might make us feel good, might make us feel uncomfortable, depending on how we wish to see how that should be. We elevate or fantasize about being really capable, or we become very defensive about how we are because we're not as able as others and all this kind of thing. Competition is fierce. For what? It's mainly fierce in relationship to some person doing something better or worse than you. Let them do that. Let them be okay. Because they find a fit for what they can do, let them do that. If you haven't found a fit for you in a particular way of engaging with life, it's because you're in a process towards it. Actually, many people think they've found fits for them, and they haven't. But based on how they engage and anticipate or perceive or think things should be, part of a belief system, they proceed and continue to live life. Well, here's an idea. However, which way you are engaging, the trick in all of this is beginning to recognize that you internally are learning how to be in alignment with a higher state. I have to explain a little bit about that. Okay, here's the alignment. You know how to be in alignment with you. You judge. You. Based on what you think you should be. Or you give credit to you. How you think you have done something. Or believe something must be right or wrong. You give negative credit in that case. This is quite normal in our scheme of things here in humanity. We have a lot to learn. But what about higher states? Well, think of this as a possibility, just as a possibility. They know you exactly how you are. Number one possibility. They know how you are. You can't keep anything from that higher state perception. They don't judge you a single tiny morsel, not a single thing. There's no reason to judge you, no purpose in the judgment. You're going to do all of that. And also, you do that to try and improve your relationship with you. But you already have solid, stiff ideas in the back of your mind about how a person called George, Jim, Ron, or Dave, or Jen, or Maureen, or I don't care. You have those ideas. And what should be right? Okay, now, all right, now just a minute. Think about this. There are thousands of books written about all of this stuff based on the credibility of an individual's way of acting in life. relative to the moment that they're observed. A person can be tremendously able all through their life, and they have one thing that doesn't work out well, and they're judged for the one thing rather than a whole bunch of things they did well. Why is that, do you think? Because we're frightfully good at judging. We're not very good at allowing. Okay, if a person allows themselves, in this case, we're talking about anyone who's watching or may not be watching, and they allow themselves to see something that they're not comfortable with inside themselves, that very thing may be and may have been a protective aspect that has enabled them to survive throughout the years of their life. Oh, it's had many flowers, different kinds of flowers on it. In other words, you've used it in many different kinds of ways to help others, to help yourself, to be put yourself down, to put yourself up, whatever. It's tangible, but it's not negative. It's what you have learned to use for the purpose of structurally becoming, reflexively at least, aware of how you respond to things. Looking at it, becoming aware that you do these things, you do the very most important thing in life that you believe helps you to be you, and that is you judge. There is another option. The option is this: that's what I do. And it seems if I watch myself just living life from time to time, and do the best I can with it, one could say, I notice that I go through those kinds of things. You could call them cycles, you can call them reflex movements. And I express them through my mouth, through my body, or through my emotion. I use emotion to show someone else or myself how I am in that second. Others may not like that, that's for sure. And you may be so good at doing that that you don't even think about it, you just do it. Doing it doesn't make you bad, or good for that matter, because if as a personality you think that invigorates your personality's sense of engagement with life and you are proud of it, unknown to you, of course, or known to you, then you won't allow yourself to see that that may be something you could soften. It still doesn't make you bad. You're using force or energy provided to you from a higher state, one could say the soul, whatever you want to call it, flows in you. And all you have to do is intensify to make it stronger. Well, there are varying degrees of stronger. As soon as it gets to be really strong, you could say, oh, I'm the greatest strong engager that, my God, we were brought up this way. As kids, thinking we have to be better than somebody else, or that other person is better than us, we have to somehow thwart them if that is how you were brought up. And you may not be brought up that way. But the complicated, complex arrangement through usage of this flow for the purpose of literally surviving years and years and years of engagement with the matter planes is what you make more let's say, not rigid or stiff, but firm. Now you ask the question, how can I soften this down? Literally, you don't want to. You don't know that. And it's not the you personality and the name that David that doesn't want to. It's the emotional disposition, the sensor structure that is all around you that you take a measure of the world with and make some sense of it and respond through the nervous system to move a body to engage in a particular manner. And that's a little exacerbated, of course. It's the practice that you're used to. Fundamentally, you're becoming slightly more aware of it. Therefore, you're using the reflexive responses that you're not always aware of to protect it externally and internally. It makes you feel not very comfortable with yourself. But look, at a higher state, this is seen as movement in a direction towards understanding deeper how you function and slowly adding, and I said slowly adding, piece by piece, a softer engagement with this form called personality, includes the physical body, emotions, and mind, in such a way as so that you can mold it a bit and pause a bit and understand a bit deeper, but still will make you feel uncomfortable because you're changing the material that has comforted you from the initial moment of a construction of this form that we call personality. And it's an energy structure. There are automatic pathways that are already built up. Causes no negation, but causes a reflex to use exactly the same similar patterns. And there's a whole cycle in this. First of all, you think, oh my God, I did it 3 times. Now I'm fully cured. I'm really able. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. Within 2 seconds, you're back to where you were. Why is that? Because you're softening the form. In the Christian background, they had a really interesting thing that was occurring. They said, you cannot put new wine in an old wine flask. Nobody understands what it means. It means slowly the nature of how we were previously, even though it fights back, because naturally it's the system we use to help us survive, because it's well ingratiated, it's well deeply embedded in our living life. We don't like not believing what we believed before. That's part of that wine flask. In the old days, they used leather. And you can imagine wine sitting in a leather form like this, that they put a kind of a cork, but it could have been stone, it could be anything. Pop that out, have a drink, but sits back, and in the leather is always the remnant of the old wine. Such a good allegorical form, a good metaphor. In us, this form that is not negative, but constructed relative to a whole environment that is maybe different than what you want it to be currently. There's no abracadabras. There are a few things that you can attempt to do if you think they're worthwhile. Their worth will come up as against the old wine flask. Don't do this, it won't work. I tried it once, it's not very helpful. I can do that, but who's to know that all of that thing is all old wine flask stuff. And that is nature, the nature of us. And the higher states know that's the nature of us. There's no slapping around, you did a bad thing. No, it's more like, did you see that? That's how the nature of you functions, but it's moving in a direction, slow and easy. Now, Maureen asked the question, well, not quite the same question, but Maureen said, there should be something that occurs, should be hit by lightning. That's my and then you'll know for sure something happened. It isn't how it works. Can there be lightning that hits? Yes, but you're not prepared to have lightning hit. What you're preparing for is to have a breakthrough into an understanding that allows you to perceive beyond what you will allow yourself to perceive. With all due respect, don't go too quickly. Don't be judgmental around how fast you're growing. A tiny little speck of growth shifts everything inside. Meaning you can see just about everything that you do. If you begin to do that, first thing that occurs is a natural reflex for you to protect the form that you've already constructed. The old wine flask. Natural. This is not negation. This is normal. When you do this, higher states that can see know you are practicing a movement towards seeing what just happened. As higher states don't have any judgment on you, you are learning how not to judge you. So you're aligning with higher states that way, but you're not brought up that way. You're also judging others. Well, that's not in alignment with the higher state. And there's nothing offensive in that. It's a natural propensity of beings like us on these planes to do and be the way these planes have demanded, from our perspective, what we believe we need to be to survive. And these pathways are little tributaries of actions and reactions and attempts to understand as well. You have to include those. Look back 20 years. See if there's any change. Normally, what is it? A year is like a single day, or 100 years is like a single day in the relationship with growth that you have in terms of higher states. One single second of growth, it makes you uncomfortable. If you're really that uncomfortable, you must have had more than 1 second of growth. Learning to be okay with you, but not necessarily in agreement with you, is just there. That idea is just there to promote a willingness within us to use our will, not only to see how we function, not to assess and judge how we function, but to just move generously and with great respect and kindness to broaden things out a bit. And we will know then how difficult it is for you to do that. Perhaps it might show how difficult it is for others to do that and eke out compassion, not only for others, but for yourself, but with the intent, the hope, the wish, the desire, one could say, the prayer, the willingness to go beyond what you concede to be the right way to be, to concede that it may not be exactly as those higher states. Would show you. But we have to go through us. So I used to say you never run out of material when you're on a growing path. Many have said they're already finished 6 months or a year or 10 years after they already started. And for some, they make great leaps. And for you, Dave, you make great leaps, that's for sure. And some others I could name have made great leaps. Everyone who grows one tiny particle within them that allows them to learn and be okay from themselves and see those reflections in others and the great difficulties that they have and engaging, they have grown in great leaps. It's not the verbalization of everything. It's the realization that occurs that shows you a deeper level of inner growth. Place yourself in positions of, how am I now? Am I okay? My next move may be to become even more able to perceive inside through those many adventures that I've had, through my past lives, not caring what they were, but noting that they were there so you could handle a little bit more energy coming through you in this life than you could ever have dreamed of. To me, this is a wondrous possibility. And negation does not help. It just stiffens that resolve to remain the same. And you can understand, perhaps, how that could happen. More emotional reflex, harsher, get a little stiffer, and how things must be right and how they must resolve, and this versus another. When you're looking at things, though, you're naturally looking at them from a material perspective. The world would be better if. I would be better if. Perhaps you would. Perhaps you wouldn't. For example, if you grew more than you think you are, and you are, from my perspective, you start being more superior to other people because you've grown quite a bit and they haven't. From your perspective, you're still judging. You're not aligning with the higher state. You're aligning with the self-importance that has always been there, even when there was no reason to have it. from a perspective that relates directly to aligning with a higher state. Yet even then, you were okay. The next day, you were able to move and perhaps grow. Getting your way, being right, being wrong, all of these things are just part of the puzzle, part of the way we think things should be. Those higher states, unless you can really experience some of them differently than from your personality's perspective, from this form's perspective, is still focused on this form, the importance of the individual. We have a lot to learn with respect to some of these avatars that have come before. As I said before, they have, from our perspective, they were idols for us to be like them. So what do? We make up being like them. It doesn't work that way. They were like them. You begin to grow through you. You can't act like them. You can be more appreciative of your relationship with you, more loving, more understanding, have a greater capacity to be all right with you and to grow more. No matter how slow that growth is, it's you working through all of these lines of reference that relate to handling more energy and different kinds of energy as well, ultimately, in more than one plane. This one, physical, emotional, and mental. These are not easy things to do. Those higher states are always there, trying to implement or help when you can handle the help, when you can handle allowing yourself to be okay with you as well, without just talking about it. I remember a person say, I am really great. I have allowed myself to be really wonderful and I am fantastic. And I am now spiritual, blah, blah, blah. I was like, great. Where to go from there? He said, no comment. I said, don't need one. If you really are, that's fantastic. Help other people. Help them in the place where they need it, not in the place where you need the reassurance that you're helping. But you will do that because you're a human being. You will move slowly. In my opinion, these well-established survival reflexes are common to everybody in different ways. You can't fool those higher states. You can fool everybody else. Well, unless they have a link with higher states. And they just hear you talking, and you have a right to talk. Who are you talking to? You're talking to yourself. Understand what you're saying to you from the inside out, where you need the help. I think everybody needs the help in being okay with watching continual cycles unfold in front of them and finding them interesting as opposed to negative. Because eventually you can see through those cycles that you have in you, the cycles that other people have that are similar to you. Ultimately, if you can handle some of yours, no disrespect, gently and with some kindness, energy can operate through those cycles You'll notice it. You won't respond in there. You'll watch energy moving through to help others who are hooked in those cycles. And we all need a lot of help in those ways. Remember, you're not building a perfect personality. I'm just looking at some of the notes. There's so much stuff around this. And I didn't want to leave anything out. As a personality, one can say those things. You can use energy. Definitely use patience. Try not to judge. Remember, you're a human being. You're not. The job is not to become perfect. This is the kind of thing that I was talking about with avatars. We idolize people. But one thing you can do is be prepared to be okay with helping people without anyone knowing. That's a big deal. Okay, I don't know how much that helped. You can turn the hands on, Dave, and try to ask for help, as if you remember the old cloud meditation that we did, where you're asking for help. You turn the hands on. They're out behind your heart center, out in the back, about 2 or 3 feet or a foot, if that's what you can handle, and move those hands and ask that you be helped, transmuted, and healed in a gentle, balanced, and appropriate a manner as possible. And at the same time, keep your wits about you. Be conscious of when you react. But when you're conscious of your react, don't pull judgment in behind it and say, I do this. Okay, let me ease this down a bit. The speaking of easy gets through because you're the one who's talking to you. Go gently. And you'll notice from time to time, you don't respond exactly the same as you might have. Those times right there are little inroads into helping that wine flask be softer, 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 because energy is coming in to help the form. The wine flask is the form. Personalities, wondrous way of engaging with these planes. So you're not trying to negate all of these things. You're trying to build on, broaden, understand, and you will know for sure that the form will fight back because already it's created a kind of stronger, solid form, emotionally, physically, and for some, even mentally. That's what happens here. So little by little, I wish you well, Dave. So just want to make sure that I'm still on course with Jen. I think that you might have made some sense out of that. Jen was talking about similar things, but also that there are new ways of seeing situations other than the ones that she was normally used to seeing, the ways she was normally used to seeing. And that is part of the growing process. That's what you end up seeing. You start to look at situations not only with respect to the situation itself, but with respect to the form that you have, creation of you in the way that you have, because like organizations, like businesses. They are just forms with characterizations, as we all are. And understand that you can learn from how they function. You can learn or attempt not to function that way the best you can, but they affect you. And people affect you. The closer people are to you, the more effect they have on you. But here's another thing. Even if they're at arm's distance and they're not close to you, you can watch how they function and help you with what you learned about how others function, so that you're not judging them. You're trying to learn how to broaden out and stretch your relationship normals into a softer place, more resilient way of engaging. This takes a lot of practice, but it's a practice. Same as doing anything, it is a practice. I wish you well. Jen, it looks like you're on well, I was going to say the right track, but boy, oh boy, that's exactly what we were talking about. You're on a track to understanding more about yourself without giving yourself a hard time. In spite of the moments when you do, try to pull back from them, engage with them, soften down, and understand. Look for meaning in them. Why did I do it that way? The why may help you, but you have to let go of judging the why after you figure it out. Because if you do that, you're right back into the why business, and the difficulty and the degree of difficulty gets stronger because you're intensifying stronger. Be respectful of yourself when you're learning. Nobody gets it perfectly. If you could only hear that in the way I mean it, it would mean people get it better, 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 better. The goal is not perfection. The goal is continuation. So more perception can be broadened, and perception of that flow internally that everyone is working with, getting objects with, capacities with. I'm not devaluing that. I'm saying these are marks along the way. They're not final engagements at all. Alignment with higher states for a purpose that relates to higher states. Being a part of something much broader than our beliefs, even, is profound. I wish you well with that. And Maureen, I think you might have made some sense of what I was talking about in your first, with respect to your first question. I've been feeling stuck or lost during your meditations. I'm wondering if it's my personality that thinks there needs to be a happening, lightning, for me to be in growth. Everyone is already in growth. If it's really, really slow, it's still growth. I'm not implying that yours is, by the way. I'm just saying, no matter from the quickest to the slowest, as soon as I say that, I know the dilemmas we have as personalities in competition about how fast we're growing and how we're faster than somebody else and all this stuff. That has nothing to do with anything, except for one minor thing. We'd all like to be growing faster. But our range of growth, our capacity to be okay in it, is not relative to our belief system. It's relative to the capacity that is known at a higher state. We go to look for things that have been accomplished. That proves we're growing. This is a verbal kind of rationale that's fairly logical and makes some sense, except for one minor detail. Many are flooded with this flow. Can't do very much here on these planes. Well, what good are they? They're transmitting and trying to help the species grow beyond its designated level. What do you mean by designated level? The level that the species holds itself in for the purpose of being validated by its own self-interest. Wow, that's a mouthful. And it's not a judgment. It's just how things sometimes work. Perception, increasing bit by bit, allows more energy to come in. But at the same time, that increased perception is what will allow you to perceive you as you are and the differences that occur over time. Perceiving energy itself flowing in you is a level of consciousness that not many people are in. We need more of this in the whole planet. Yet at the same time, there is a drastic fear that people would use that energy for their own purposes. That's why slow, gradual, but continual growth supports the idea that the energy is not to be used at certain states for personal use and abuse of others. Everyone has to learn this within themselves, and this is not something that is comfortable, because on our planet, we tend to get accolades based on who we defeat. We don't treat it like a real game. We treat it as if it's life-threatening. We must win to have more accolades than somebody else. And we use this principle, which is totally different than higher state orientations, for the purpose of being more important than other people. Therefore, we are more spiritual. It doesn't work like that. That is using energy for the purpose of becoming more valued as opposed to helping others. I know it's a fine, thin line. Occam's razor. And little by little, we may have the opportunity of understanding this. I believe we will. I believe humanity can handle an understanding of themselves as a being of consciousness constructed on planes relative to how we function here at the lower edges of, or let's say the rawer edges or coarser edges of existence. I think I'd like to end tonight, but I want to wish everyone extremely good fortune in terms of their health and their spiritual development, the same as I would wish for myself. Please take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Meditation. And now meditation. So we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. Please do the balancing and grounding on your own. And good night, everybody.